The Andrew Lake Podcast.
Now in collaboration with Acid Quote Tees.
Feel the rhythm now.
10,000 years!
All connected.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back once again. This is Doster Andrew Lake. So pleased to be with you, as always. Hope you're shining. Hope you're smiling. Wishing you happy feelings and good times. Someone said to me, the intro for your podcast is too long. And I go, mate, it's like 17 seconds. And they went, yeah, 17 seconds is too long. Do you think people have the attention span of 17 seconds these days? And I went, well, yeah, maybe you're right. And then, of course, it's sort of like, I mean, I'm not trying entirely to appeal to those people that have a short attention span, even though if you're doing anything on the internet, if you're doing anything of content creation, if you're putting anything out there, you sort of have to be like that. You have to have a certain amount of attention grabbingness. And yet also, it's sort of like this thing where if you change one thing, then you might have to change another thing. And then if you change another thing, then it changes another thing, and then it loses what it is. It becomes something else, which might be progress, it might be evolution. Yeah, I'm all about evolution, I'm all about change. And yet, also, there is something about being true to yourself. There's something about saying the things you want to say from the heart, however you want to say them, even though in the way that you say them might be difficult for some people to convey. I remember when I was in primary school, long time ago now, many lifetimes. Mountains have risen and fallen since then. When I was in primary school, there was this girl. Her name was Sophie Knight. We must have been 7 or 8 years old. And she wore her uniform, her school uniform, her jacket specifically, in a certain way. It was sort of drooped over her elbows, sort of like a posh girl. I think maybe she was a bit of a young posh girl. But anyway, I have this really clear memory of the teacher coming up to her and going, "Hey, looks like you've got SKS." And of course, everyone's just like, what on earth is that? SKS? So it's some kind of disease? And the teacher goes, "You've got Sophie Knight syndrome." And of course, her name was Sophie Knight. And the teacher then proceeded to fix up the uniform of poor young Sophie by saying, no, don't do your jacket like this, do it like this, and, tuck this in and this like this, and, oh, no, like this, and you don't want to have this like this, otherwise you'll be suffering from SKS, Sophie Knight syndrome. And of course, we were just kids, Sophie was just a kid at that time, and I was just a kid at that time. We didn't really know what was happening. Kids are just doing what they do. They don't really have much way of standing up for themselves. They don't have people that come in and save them at the time that they need saving. But it was really twisted that a teacher, an adult, would use Sophie Knight as her personality against her as this bad thing, in the uniqueness in the way that she wore her uniform, in the uniqueness that she was able to express herself. And I'm sure, what happened to Sophie? Nobody knows. She's somewhere in this big wide world. She's probably still alive. Statistically speaking, she's still alive. Statistically speaking, she had kids, she's had jobs, she's had a life, she's had ups and downs, she's had relationships. I wonder if she's done drugs. I wonder if she's done meditation. I wonder if she's been to India and discovered the Osho International Meditation Resort and spent months on end doing freaky awareness intensives. Not likely. I'm sure Sophie's had a colourful life. I'm sure she's sexy as well. She was a posh girl. She would have turned into something sexy. I imagine that sexy girls have good lives, but you never know. I don't really know. I only know what they tell me. So I do what the voices tell me. Okay, let's keep this on track. Let's not get too far out. I've been far out enough before. I don't want to lose you on this. So Sophie Knight syndrome, what I'm trying to say is, it's like if you change one little thing, then that's a suggestion. And if you change another thing, well, maybe that's okay as well. But if you change it all around, then maybe it's not quite right. And the other thing about the intro to the podcast is I'm trying to get the brand in there. So if I say acid quote teas in the intro, which it is in the intro, then that's the branding out of the way. Because sometimes I forget, like today I've completely forgotten to do the quote of the day. The quote of the day is, if you'd like to know, sometimes I'm drunk. Sorry, let me get this right. Sometimes I'm drunk on life. Sometimes I'm drunk. So let me come to that in a moment. But to finish off this thing about Sophie Knight and being true to yourself, I mean, a creative project is an expression of your personality. It's your exploration into the things that you might want to try. And if you're doing something to please an audience, to appeal to the crowd, to bring the masses to your attention, or bring the attention of the masses to you, as to say, then that's different to creativity. That's marketing. That's product development. But creativity is art. Creativity involves an active engagement that is refined, that is subtle, that is a little bit indefinable, that is a little bit intangible. You can't easily exactly say what it is. You'll notice that about mainstream things. Any mainstream movie, any mainstream food, any mainstream music, it's really obvious what it is. It often even announces what it is. And those sort of pronunciations are appealing because they're big, dumb, and loud. And, you know, I've talked about this before and I'll talk about it again. Art is something different. Art is something subtle. Art and creative practices require an engagement from the audience that is coming from a place of awareness. When you have a sensitivity and you're opening yourself with awareness, you're trying to get something that's deeper. The things that are big, loud, and dumb don't appeal to you because it's just so obvious. It seems boring. It seems bland. You want something refined, like fine perfume, or fine wine, or jazz music. And I know that this podcast, well, I mean, it's not so serious, right? It's a creative project, but it's not so serious. So we are trying to create something a little bit obscure because we've got the acid quote of the day every episode, but also it's not so much an appeal to the masses. This is something cozy that we're creating here. This is something personal. This is something that only you and me know about, and we keep to ourselves. We keep this as our own little secret, yeah? And in doing that, we can actually create something very, very special. We can create something meaningful. We can create an island of light, a beacon of something in the sea of mess, the sea of chaos, the sea of misinformation, or even just information. Now, I'm not trying to bring you so much information as entertainment and just quirky ideas, but at least that is a little bit of a foundation. So I thought I would say that just because someone said the intro to the podcast is too long. Maybe that's too much of a rant. And I mean, the other thing is you've got to get to the point, right? And I mean, that in itself is get to the point. Well, why should I get to the point? Why do things have to have a point? Why do they have to be pronounced so sharply? If you want to get to the point, go to the desert and find yourself a cactus. There's something in unfolding that is natural. There's something in conversational styles of speech. There's something in explorations of what's happening. And the tricky thing for me is that so much happens all at once that it's hard to know what exactly to put words to. And oftentimes I put words to things before I think them, and then I have to think them later in order to put words to them again in a different order in order to make sense later on. And of course, when I get to the end of the sentence, it's a big surprise for me and everyone else, I hope. So putting words to each moment is, well, each moment. How much is in each moment? There's always more in each moment than every word there ever is. So how is it that you can even choose the right word? So let's riff a little bit off that and move our attention towards this quote of the day. Sometimes I'm drunk on life. Sometimes I'm drunk. And this comes back to something that we've talked about many times before, which is about daily state profile. So every day you have a collection of feelings that occur to you. And if you're working well and you've got things up to some degree of awareness, for want of a better word, or consciousness, or lifestyle design, or, there's no word for it. If you've got things working in a whistly clean way, to a certain degree, it doesn't have to be perfect, then you're having good feelings throughout the day, yeah? You're feeling good at certain times. And that is being drunk on life. That is being drunk with the happiness of the simple pleasures. It's being drunk with the ecstasy of existential realization. It's being drunk with the beauty in the divinity of the small, of the microscopic. It's being drunk on the ideas of what this reality could be. Now, beyond that, you could just be drunk, right, on alcohol. Now, alcohol is a tricky one to talk about because I'm very much against these dark poisons. I'm very much against the things that cause clenches upon you, these things that hurt. And if you need to give up drinking, then I very much greatly encourage you to do so. Now, that being said, in a certain way, in a certain kind of life, there is actually nothing wrong with having a drink every now and then. And there's even nothing wrong with getting drunk every now and then. That is an experience that is to be had. It is an experience that you can enjoy. And it's funny that in this phrase, it's actually meant to be a kind of contradiction, which is that sometimes I'm drunk on life, which is the good side, and sometimes I'm drunk, which is the bad side, which means that my downside is actually when I'm having alcohol. That's the low of my day. That's the low of my times. And of course, these sort of phrases, they're ambiguous intentionally in that they are interpreted in multiple ways. And I don't want to systematically interpret them in many different ways. I want to keep it open. So what does it mean for you to be drunk? And how is it that you get drunk on life? Think about this for a moment. Think. What is it that makes you high? What is it that's throughout your day that is giving you these good feelings? And if you're not getting that, what is it that you could do to get that? How far off are you? Are you doing yoga every week? Are you going to Tai Chi every week? Are you doing your morning meditation? Are you doing your workout routine, your exercises? Are you eating healthy? And all of these things, when they're done consistently and deeply and supplemented with periods of intensive training, they lead to higher states. They lead to regular bouts of ecstasy, regular bouts of existential realization, regular bouts of just basking in the beauty, in the glory of the day. And it is a process. At different times of life, we don't have time to do these intensives. It takes a lot. It takes a lot to quit your job, to leave your family, to pack up all your worldly possessions, to sell your car, and to go overseas and say, I'm going to non-stop do this until I break. And the advantage is that if you do that, then you have the experience on your side. And ask yourself, really, how many times in your life have you started again? How many times have you started from zero? I can count at least 4 for myself. If you count the initial moving out of home, when you become a young adult, that's 1. You're starting from 0. Or when you go to college. And then if you count leaving a job to go to another job in another city, moving cities, as 2, that's 2. You might do that in your mid-20s or your early 20s, or even your late 20s. And if you count your first midlife crisis of realizing that that's also a dead end and I'm also going to pack up and drop everything and go overseas, then that's 3. And then you've got coming back from overseas, coming back to the country that you began your journey from, that you left, and joining a new city again. Not even coming back to the old city where you used to live, but coming back to a new city. That's 4. That's basically what my story has been. And it's better that you have your midlife crisis earlier. The earlier the better. And also more dramatically, the more worse your midlife crisis is, the more heartache you will save from later on. Many times, very common, what happens is a man in his early 50s has a heart attack. And that he uses as an excuse, he's not going to be working so much anymore. He's not going to be working so hard. I remember the big CEO of a company that I used to work for had exactly that happen. He was the CEO of Zambrero, which is a fast food chain in Australia that makes Mexican food. They sell burritos and tacos and nachos. And this big CEO had a health scare. I don't know if it was exactly a heart attack, but it was a health problem. And after that, he stepped down. And it seemed like the perfect excuse, right? He couldn't have just stepped down to say, I need to take a new turn in life. He needed that excuse somehow. And this is so common. This is very common. So have your midlife crisis earlier and realize that it's beautiful earlier. And come to existential realization earlier. Open your heart to love, to peace, sooner. And do whatever it takes, yes? Do whatever it takes. Because you do have what it takes. You have it in you. You've got a lot more going for you than you realize. So that's a little bit about sometimes I'm drunk on life, sometimes I'm drunk. And you can head on over to the Etsy store to purchase your acid quote tea. Support the little guy. And I'm hoping you have a beautiful day. I'm hoping you're smiling. I'm hoping you're not taking yourself too seriously. And every time this happens, oh man, I just love this stuff so much. It just makes me laugh. It makes me happy. It makes me feel so good to just bless you. Have a blessed day. Bless you. And keep on keeping on. Stay real. Stay cute. Have fun. And we'll be back very soon with more. Subscribe. Share your favorite episode with a friend. Comment. I always forget this stuff as well. Comment and leave me a review or 5-star review, whatever it is. You know what it is. Thank you very much. Have a beautiful day. See you later. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.